What's up, everyone, and welcome into a special edition of the Buffalo Sports Collective. Today, we have the pleasure of talking with play-by-play broadcaster for the Georgia Swarm, Nick Klos. Nick, thanks for joining us. How's it going?
It's going well. I'm excited. We're getting to the end of the season. Playoffs around the corner, and every game matters now, but excited to be with you and to talk this week.
So, we got you on for the Georgia Swarm. First question each interview is, what is one word to describe the Georgia Swarm season?
I think the one that comes to probably a lot of people's minds is just inconsistent. I think that's the only way, you could go. You could maybe go chaotic because it's just been so up and down. You start 4-0. You've had multiple 3-game skids. There's been just so many times you're thinking, wow, this is one of the best teams in the league. And then you go right back to, are they going to make the playoffs? And that's where we're sitting right now. So I would say the best way to describe them is inconsistent.
Yeah, I think we do power rankings on our show, and I've joked multiple times, it's got to be so frustrating to be a Georgia Swarm fan right now because you see the potential that's there, and then you also see the negative side of it. But we'll start with the offense like we normally do, and it feels like it's been another season where the offense isn't bad, but they're kind of in the middle of the pack right now, sitting sixth in the league, and it's been a bit better than last year. They were tied for 11th last year, but good or bad, what have you seen from this offensive group this year that has them sitting where they are, putting the ball in the back of the net?
I mean, when you look at Georgia, your eyes immediately shift to offense just because, one, you got Lyle Thompson. I mean, the amount of talent on the Swarm offense kind of shows you what they got. I mean, when you got Cole, you got Andrew Q, who's kind of budding, coming into his own. You got Lyle Thompson. Miles Thompson is back in, adding a little bit. And then now down the stretch, you're getting Shane Jackson, who's a former MVP, and he's starting to get back. And I think when Lyle and Shane are at the top of their game, that's when you're looking at this Georgia offense and you're going, all right, they can play with anyone. So it's a really good offense. I think that's where kind of inconsistent comes up. I mean, it comes up in different parts of the game for Georgia, but I think offense has been really the one that you're like, I feel like this team can get more than 13, but that 13 barrier has been tough for them. And Eddie Camo always says 12 goals. We want to get 12 goals, possibly more than 12, and we want to keep a team under 12. So that's kind of their formula, and they've been about there, but it falls on the defensive end at that point. But I think this offense just has so much talent. When it's clicking, it's on fire. I think teams have done a really good job on them to kind of force them outside and take a lot of outside shots where goalies can just eat them up. So the talent is 100% there, and I think that's been a big part with Shane Jackson kind of stepping up. Torrin Eccleston was a rookie no one really expected. Caleb Benedict, too, adding on the offensive end. So there's young talent, there's old talent, and then also you got to think about the consistency that's gone through the Georgia just organization for the last couple of years, and since they moved in 2017, a lot of guys that have been there for a while who know each other really well. So that could be something that can also be an asset down the stretch.
So the engine continues to run through Lyle Thompson. Man,
there's a lot of them, man.
Yeah, there's too many of them, but still one of the best players in the entire world and one of the most exciting players to see firsthand. Now, not saying he had a down season last year, but we're kind of expecting and used to seeing the 100-point seasons from Lyle. And last year he only had 87. He's already eclipsed that this year with one game to go, and he has a chance to get his 5th 100-point season. And I mean, that's going into the Saturday night's game versus Buffalo. But does he do anything, or he does everything for this team? He's second in loose balls on the team, 6th in caused turnovers. How important is it for a team when your best player is also one of those ones that isn't afraid to get to the dirty areas and do the dirty work?
Oh yeah, I mean, he inspires this whole team. I'll ask Coach Eddie Camo about him, and it's just he's like, Lyle's just got to be Lyle. Like that's all it is. When you have a guy like him, he calls him an artist. He's an artist on the lacrosse field, and you give him that paintbrush and just let him work, and he'll give you a masterpiece. And that's what Lyle Thompson is. So he's amazing. I mean, I remember I got the job, and my first thought was like, I get to watch the Thompson brothers. And I was very excited for it. And Lyle has lived up to the hype in every way. And it's funny. I think you can call last season a down year for Lyle Thompson. I mean, 87 points. He was tied with Andrew Q for the team lead. And for him, that is a down year. It's just true. And so to see him bounce back this year was really exciting, and having some of those highlight typical Thompson goals that we love to see. And I do think it is so huge when you get a guy like that who is, just been a staple of lacrosse for so many years and a great offensive talent. Well, he's getting back on the defensive end to stop transition. Well, he is, using the skills from the field game on the ride to play great defense and get that ball back. We've seen him score transition goals in the last couple weeks. So he's the heart and soul of the Georgia Swarm. He is the heartbeat, and he's the star for a reason. So everything goes through him. And when they're down, sometimes they just need Lyle to be that spark. And also on the downside, sometimes he bears a lot of a burden, which can be really, really tough. And he's always going to get the best guy. He's always going to get the best defender. So you're number one on the scouting report, and he knows that. And so to get all that attention, still be as successful as he is, and bounce back this year after having a great summer with Six Nations and winning a Man Cup and doing all that. So he's definitely kind of returned to form and just an amazing player all over. Eddie Camo calls him the best overall lacrosse player in the world.
Yeah, and he's going against his summer ball coach on Saturday as well. So that
exactly.
That helps having a little inside knowledge both ways. So Shane Jackson, you already mentioned his name. I was very hard on him the first part of the season, and he was one of my mentions in our biggest surprises or disappointments and on the negative side midway through the season. But he's come alive in this back half of the season. He's second on the team in scoring. Was there something in his game early on that you might have noticed to explain those numbers being a bit down where they were? Because I think he was on pace for like 40 points total. And then the resurrection that we've seen in the back half of the season.
Yeah, so I kind of heard he was a little banged up to start the year. And so it was pretty slow for him to start. And even I was kind of shocked. I was like, I'm not saying Shane Jackson's name enough. Like, why is that not coming up more? Just because when I came into the year, you're looking at this team and you're looking at Lyle Thompson and Shane Jackson. That's the two for me. And Brian Cole's insane as well. Andrew Q. That's why you start to look at it and you're like, wow, this offense has a lot. And Shane Jackson just really wasn't producing. It was a shock to me. It was a shock to fans, obviously, from other teams as well. And so I think being a little banged up is kind of the only explanation for that. Took him a while to get into it. Can't fully explain exactly why, but I think once he healed up, that's when we started to see him return to that old form and see him coming out of the front door and getting those transitions. Also, I think he was snake bit. Like, he just wasn't scoring. He would get good looks, good opportunities. Lyle would find him on the back door, and they just weren't going in. And that sometimes happens. So I thought he just started slow. He was banged up, so that adds to it. And then sometimes I guess you just need that scoring touch to return, and it definitely has. And just looking at what he's been able to do the last couple games has been insane. I mean, he had the 7-point game, a 9-point game before that, and then the Philly game was rough for them overall. But he's getting back to form, and this is the perfect time for that. If they can get the defense going on the other end, then him being right back there is a big part of it. But yeah, I think he was banged up, and so it was a really slow start to the year for him.
So Brian Cole, you mentioned his name. To me, he's been one of those ones that stepped up into a bigger offensive role for this team this year. Last year, he was taking a few shifts out the front door, but this year it seems like, and we can relate it to Buffalo aspect here, like Ian McKay playing full-time out the front gate. Now, how has his transition to a bigger part of this offense been this year? I mean, over 30 goals for a guy that's, first time in the NLL out the front gate. Very impressive. I mean, like, for any Buffalo people listening, the perfect connection is Ian McKay and Brian Cole. What they're doing this year is, mirror images and beyond impressive.
Yeah, it's been really cool to see for him. Really impressive too. And he deserves it. I mean, he's a really talented player, and you see the trust has just grown throughout the season in him. I mean, he's out there in big moments, in key moments. He's part of that, really that top five, I'd say. I mean, he's out there with Shane, Andrew, Lyle, and then sometimes it's Miles, sometimes it's Caleb, sometimes it's Torin. It kind of rotates around, but he's a staple to me, and he should be. He's a fantastic player. brought a great career from Maryland and has now become a really solid NLL player. And to see the offense really click for him, I mean, we've seen him get some goals diving across the crease. We've seen him shoot from outside. He's very versatile in the way he's got it done. And I've just been impressed. I mean, he's on the floor in big moments. I mean, we know this is like the Georgia Swarm are Mr. Close Game. It's what it is this season. So he's been on the floor in those moments, and he's someone they count on. And the connection between him and Lyle, I think, is a good one, and they see each other really well. So he's really been impressive. You're 100% right, and it's good to see that he's getting recognized for what he's been able to do this year. And just the production's been much better and more spread out from this Georgia team from last year to this year.
So last one in terms of the offense for me, the team has a couple rookies. We already mentioned them, and you've already mentioned them. It's been a nice little change for this offense that's just been so veteran-laden for so many years. But Torrin Eccleston and Caleb Benedict, I mean, they've played a little bit more in the back half, which is understandable because they're rookies. They're getting their feet wet in the NLL. But what have you seen from these two rookies that you've liked that maybe the average NLL fan that maybe doesn't watch a ton of Swarm games gets to see on Saturday night?
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking at Torrin Eccleston first, he's a bigger guy, taller dude. I think, he comes in at 6'4", and you see that length when he's playing, but he's got so much confidence. And you'll see he'll take on someone one-on-one. He'll try and go through the middle, and he has that confidence, and it comes from the early games when he first got in the lineup. I mean, his third game he had 8 points, and his fourth game he had 7 points. Now, he hasn't consistently done those numbers because if he was, I mean, he'd be one of the most popular players in the NLL. But he just showed that he can take over a game. He has the skill set to do it at this level, which just shows his scoring ability, his ability to see the floor. It was really, really impressive for how he's done that in his first year. So he's got the size, I think, over 200 pounds. That's a big part. And then he's also got great hands and a really good shot. So he definitely adds someone, in my opinion, who can kind of initiate their own offense, which is great. And then you go from him to Caleb Benedict, who's a little bit different, a small guy that just zips around the floor. I mean, watching him move with the ball, the first thing I notice is always his quickness and his ability to get around the floor and push behind the net or push towards goal line extended to see if he can tuck it in or anything like that. But he's really quick and can run down out the outside. And I like the addition. Like you said, it's just nice to see new blood in the offense, what they produce. And it's cool to see him get out there because he's got a nice shot. And then, like I said, he's just whipping all over there. He's got great speed. So two rookies who are very different in terms of what they bring, but two very skilled players.
Yeah, I was excited to see Benedict get in the lineup this year because he missed all last season. I was hyped to see him last year and seeing him this year. But as mentioned off the top, it's your first year behind the mic for the Swarm. Talk about that opportunity or how that opportunity came up and then how you've kind of grown into that role and made it your own as the season progressed.
Yeah, so, I mean, I'm a kid from Lacrosse. I grew up in Virginia playing ice hockey and lacrosse. Those are my two sports, and grew up in that. So once I got to college, I played at Tampa for like a semester, and then I left, and I was a goalie and decided to go to college. Got into broadcasting, and I was like, hey, lacrosse in the Southeast, people need that. There's not a lot of people who know the sport of lacrosse. And so got into that. I do a lot of college field for ACC women's and men's. And then I moved to Georgia because my fiance is in medical school. And so I made the move, and literally I've lived here for 2 months, and I'm like, the only lacrosse job is the Swarm, but they got a crew. I get a random email from the Swarm saying, hey, we like to keep tabs on people who know lacrosse in the area. And then that moved from there. Turns out they were going a new direction. And, I mean, it was just really perfect place, perfect time. I could not have imagined that it would work out that way. And especially for me, it was really cool because, like I said, I grew up playing ice hockey and lacrosse. So when I was growing up, dreaming of being a pro athlete, it was the MLL, it was the NLL, and it was the NHL. So, like, growing up, that's what you looked towards. So to be able to call games in the NLL, which is a league I've followed and watched, and I'm one of the few Americans that have played box growing up. So it was really, really cool, and yeah, just perfect place, perfect time, and it's been awesome.
So we'll flip to the defensive side of the ball. Jordan McIntosh, I mean, this is a perfect timing, massive game he just had on Saturday. But, he might have a few more miles on his body being in age 30, 35 season now, but he's still the leader out there coming out the back gate. I mean, a lot more front gate this last game, but he leads the team in loose balls, caused turnovers, block shots, and he's also got 26 points to his name. But off the floor, how important is it to have a guy like Jordan in a season that's had so many ups and downs so far, with one game to go?
I think it's huge. I mean, Jordan's a guy who was drafted by the Swarm in 2011 when they were in Minnesota. So, like, he is a staple for this team and for this franchise. So, it's great to see him having continued success as his career goes on because, I mean, he's not really slowing down with how he's been playing. And he's, like you said, off the floor, his leadership is huge. And there's a big leadership crew on that Georgia team with Cole is a alternate captain, Jackson's an alternate captain, and then the captain is Jordan McIntosh. So they got a great veteran group that's just been together for a long time. But I think this is huge that Jordan's here because I know a couple years ago they started 0-7. So this team has the experience of, hey, getting knocked down. They understand what it's like in an NLL season. It's long, and the first 4 weeks, as we saw, have nothing to do with the last week where you're in a totally different situation than what all the media is talking about at that time. So it's huge to have his voice along with the others that have the experience from those years that were rougher, but also the years where they won the cup. So he's got that experience and he can be that voice off the floor just like a couple guys can, I think, and let them know, hey, we've been here before. Hey, we've come from behind. There's tons of parity in this league. Anyone can lose to anyone, and I think we'll see that this weekend. You got Buffalo's in a totally different situation than Georgia, but I think Georgia can play with Buffalo. Even though there's a big distance in the standings, that's the kind of team they are. And when you got guys like that, you can win any day. And I think that's probably their message. Anytime you talk to them, they're always focused on the game at hand and, give you the general athlete speak about it and stuff like that. They're focused. And I think Jordan does play a big part of that off the floor, just using his experience.
Yeah, I think you said it perfectly where you can actually say I've seen it all, and the guys that are listening go, oh yeah, he has. But a couple new faces were added to the back end this offseason, and Seth Van Scheppen, who I absolutely loved and I wanted him in the 2022 draft even though I knew he wasn't going to fall to Buffalo, and then Joey Capito. And how have those two kind of fit on the defense through the season so far?
I mean, they've both come in and made instant impacts, and Capito was such a big addition from Colorado this year, and we would have loved to see him, I think, push up and transition a little more and get a few more goals. I mean, Eddie Camo said, obviously Joey would love to score a bit more, but it just hasn't gone that way this year. Also, Jeff Henrik and Wiedemann both got out, so Capito had to play a little more of a defensive role rather than push the pace a lot, so getting them back was huge, but he was a big addition and also brought an extra veteran presence, a guy who's just tough as nails, a lot like Jordan, and just is gonna, battle every single night and possibly give you a goal or two and make life really hard on the other team and push the pace the other way and tire them out as well. So he's been great. And then Van Scheppen, kind of silent on the back end. Obviously, we talk a lot about offense. It's just the natural thing with scoring a lot of goals. And then also in games, the offense is who's got the ball in hand. And Van Scheppen, I feel like I haven't been able to talk about him enough. And he's been so good and so fun to watch. And he's just very sound on the defensive end and gets a good amount of takeaways. And it's been tough to judge this Georgia defense at times, like I said, with some injuries and stuff like that. Definitely was really, really good to start the year and has, like I said, had those issues to address. But those two guys coming in, They were big to get and to kind of shore up the defensive end for them, and I think Van Scheppen and then as of late Hickey have been two really good guys for this Georgia team on the back end.
So a familiar face, TJ Comizio, he was traded mid-season after spending the first 4 years with the team. Is there a guy in the back end that's kind of stepped up into that bigger role with him departing?
Yeah, I don't really know. I think Hickey might be a guy who kind of stepped up. I also think Jordan could be pushing it a bit more now that TJ isn't with the team anymore. And so I don't really know who specifically I think fills TJ's role just because a lot of these players are different types of players and looking for different things. I think Jordan's doing a lot of what TJ was doing, which is pushing on the offensive end, and I'm seeing Jeff Henrick, who's bringing it from defense to offense a lot, which is TJ. TJ was a big just transition player. Bring it from one end, get it to the other, maybe push it on the offensive end if you have the numbers or you like your look. So, and that's what TJ did, and you're seeing that from McIntosh, and Henrik will get in. Wiedemann scored a goal 2 weeks ago, so he can do it. I love that was fun because Scott Wiedemann doesn't score a lot, and so he was so pumped after that game to get that goal, and obviously it was a win too, so they were happy. But they got some guys who are kind of. It seems like the committee, I guess, is kind of doing that after Comizio departed.
So the team, as we've mentioned multiple times now, they've been very up and down this season. They started at 4-0 and then a 3-game losing streak. Then they got back to 7-4 and then another 3-game losing streak. But that type of season can kind of shake a bunch of teams. But you kind of look at the quality of wins they have. They've beat Halifax. They swept San Diego. They beat a full strength Colorado Mammoth before everything that's going down with Colorado. But 9 games have been decided by one goal. They're sitting 5-4 in those. And then, they've played in 13 games that have been decided by 2 or fewer, and they're 7-6. But this team is battle tested, close matchups. But how can they kind of keep their own confidence up heading into the final week of the season where it's pretty much must win to get in?
Yeah, I think for them it's just knowing what they can be at their best. I mean, they know what they're capable of. Brett Dobson knows what he's capable of with his game when it can be at its best. Like, that's the thing is you're looking at Dobson and you're like, all right, he can steal a game. Well, he needs to steal a game. That pretty much has to happen because you look at the Philly game, the second one, and they just get down so early. That's always hard to, and props to them for even getting back in it to make it a 16-13 game. But it's like we talked about earlier, try and keep them under 12. Well, 16 goals, that's hard to beat. So I think that's the thing is just feed off the confidence that you had early on in the year and the team you can be because all the pieces are pretty much back and ready to go. So you can be a team that beats Buffalo. I mean, we've seen crazier things happen, and they know they're fully capable of doing it. Like you said, you look down that schedule and getting the wins against San Diego and wins against good teams with Halifax like that, like things like that show what this team can be. And I think with the amount of close games, it also says like you can go into a game against Georgia and it's probably going to be a dogfight. Whether Georgia wins that or loses it, they're going to make it really, really hard for you. And that's Pat Gregoire said, Georgia is a one-game playoff nightmare because they can get you in that one game. If they play the way they can get you. But what did we say at the beginning? The one word is inconsistent.
So Brett Dobson, I think it's safe to say I don't think he's taken that next step in the third season that I think a lot of us were hoping for because, he's a phenomenal player and one of the futures of the goaltending position and, one of the top ones in the net right now. But he's sitting at 11.87 goals against and a 76 save percentage. Last year was 11.18 and a 78, and then a rookie season, it was 10.69 and 78. So do you think those numbers kind of fall on him, the defense, a little bit of both? And as a former or current goaltender, you can kind of speak a little bit more to the Dobson role of it.
Yeah, I think it's always tough to judge. I mean, as a goalie myself, I played field goalie, but it's hard because, there are some that are on you, there's some that are on your defense, but also like you never want to blame the goalie and those types of things. So it can be a tough thing. when you look at those numbers, because I agree. I think after the first 4 games, we kind of thought, wow, he's coming into his own. This is what we expected. And after that, it kind of fell down a little bit. And honestly, kind of surprising the way it's gone as of late for him. He's really good. But what we're starting to notice in the NLL is the older goalies kind of come into form. It's a position that seems like it takes a long time to really get to your best. And I think it's safe to say that Brett's one of the best young goalies in this league, and I think he could reach that potential earlier than others. But this year, what has been tough, and I think has tested him, but I will say the struggles definitely started for the Swarm and for him once they lost Jeff Henrik, and then once they lost Wiedemann and those pieces started to fall, that's when you notice the defense, oh, okay, this is starting to be a little bit of a weak spot. And since then, it's been tough to really see this defense where it can be, because you look at the goals allowed they've had. I mean, yeah, it's usually in double figures, but then you get earlier in the season and they had some close games. They lost to Saskatchewan by 1, and they held them to 8 goals. So they know they can do that, and that's the goal, is to keep them under 11, 12. But between the defense and Brett having some mid-season struggles, I think that can hurt. And I think the mental game as a goalie is such a big part that something hurting or helping your confidence can be huge. I always talk about when I'm doing field games, just making that first save is so big just because it boosts your confidence. You're like, oh, I'm feeling good. I made it the early one, and then you're feeling good the rest of the game. So confidence comes into it a lot too, and I think it always hurts to take a hit and start to, see your play dip a little bit, and you're trying to get it back up. So it's obviously it's one of the hardest sports you could ever play, and that's often why you don't always put full blame, because you need the help of your defense. And also Drew Petkoff, who's my color analyst, he noticed in our last game where we had the Philly game, last home game, and he just noticed the slides weren't as good. It seemed like a lazy defensive game. It's just, so there are other pieces. I mean, the defense and the goalie, that's a unit for a reason, but Brett has definitely not, we've all seen it, definitely not had his best year, and I think it falls on a little bit of both. But yeah, it's been disappointing a little bit, thinking that he would take that next step, but like I said, he can steal a game too, so we could see a version of the Brett Dobson that everyone saw early on this season and can't expect when he's at his best.
Yeah, I'm glad you added the mental aspect of goaltending, because you're sitting in front of a full barn and you're the last line of defense. And even if things break down in front of you and it's not your fault, if the ball's in the back of the net, you got thousands of people that are just going, you got to make that save. So completely relate to that.
You're on the broadcast too. What's
right.
The shot we take right after a goal? It's the goalie looking up at so yeah, you're the guy that gets looked at, and it's a tough position. You're one of one, but a lot of times, hey, the reason we play in that position at 1-on-1 is because you affect the game. You're going to affect the game.
So last one for the team, and it's a bit of a future question, because as of late, I've been kind of looking at Georgia saying, okay, this off season can be very, very interesting for this team. And a lot of their core is locked up past this year, with Cole, Dobson, Jackson, Q, Lyle, all locked up to at least 2-year deals. But, their top 4 picks from this past draft haven't even played. They've been on multiple different inactive lists for one reason or another. But do you foresee any type of change coming this offseason, either if they miss playoffs or could be a possible one and done, that, what I mean by that is less coaching and less front office, but more of the actual players on the field, because, they got 4 fresh faces that are ready and itching to get into a veteran-laden lineup.
Yeah, and then you also have the 2 rookies already playing that are in there as well. So you're 100% right. You got guys waiting in the wings and a lot of players locked up as well. So I do think we'll see some personnel change, just general, like you said. There's a lot of young guys who could get up in there, and also I just don't think the Swarm are going to leave, especially if they miss the playoffs. I think we're definitely seeing changes. If they make it and lose a close game, I think maybe a little bit less. But I'm very interested to see what happens, because you have the same core and you start to wonder, all right, what do we need to put around this core? How much longer do we have with this core? Is the window still open right now? So there's a lot to think about there, I think, coming this offseason. So there's going to be a lot of questions. So I think if they miss the playoffs, I definitely think we'll see something, at least one thing, change for this Swarm team. And if they're able to make the playoffs, then once you're in, you're in. Who knows what can happen?
Yeah, as a content creator, I'm always looking like towards the future, probably more than I should be, and it's just like Georgia sticks out. It's like, oh man, what could happen this offseason? But I saw in your bio, and you've already mentioned it, and I see the goalie stick right behind your head. Former lacrosse goalie. I mean, I play goalie for my soccer team, but that's why I feel okay kind of saying that goalies are a different breed with a few screws loose, and you kind of have to be to play that type of position in those sports. But why that position, and do you have or did you have any unusual routines or rituals that you needed to do before, during, or after the game?
Yeah, so the way I found the position is actually not your typical. It wasn't like I started playing goalie young and just kept playing. I was just a lacrosse player. I mean, my dad coached, but I started playing when I was 4, so tried every position, just, played lacrosse and did that up until high school. And then in high school, I became an LSM and was like getting recruited low D3 and stuff my sophomore year. And junior year, I transferred high schools to a public school, and we had a goalie, but we started out 0-4, and there were 15 yarders getting in, and just not the best. And I was like, Coach, I want to try out as goalie. I was a starting LSM, but I just felt like the team needed it. And so next practice, I got in goal and just started getting ripped on by tennis balls and built up from there, and did a week of practice and got the next start. And then I started every game the rest of high school and ended up committing to Tampa my senior year. And it was, my friends and my coaches all said, it's like, you picked the wrong position. Like, you should have been playing this the whole time. And I can't agree more, but I just fell in love with it. And I fell in love with the fact that you affect the game in such a way. Like, that's what I said earlier. Like, you have to play well. If you don't play well, you let your team down, and you could be a reason that you guys don't come out on top, but you could also be the reason that you guys come out on top. And I love defense. I'm a big defense guy. I love watching defenses move, how they slide, how everything like that. So I just fell in love with that side of the ball and being a quarterback of the defense while also being someone who could really affect the game. And as far as screws loose, I agree. I definitely agree. There's a lot of different ranges of it, though. Like, there's the goalie that's just insane, and then there's people who hide it a little better. Because I used to have friends who were like, "You're one of the most normal goalies I've ever met." I'm like, yeah, it's just you're willing to stand in front of a 90+ mile per hour ball. It's not too crazy, at least in my mind. But in high school, I would go every game day. I was not a healthy athlete. Every game day, I would go to Wendy's, and I would get a Baconator, large fry, chocolate frosty, and a Diet Coke, and I would eat that every game day. Not healthy, not good for you. Wish I had treated my body better when I was playing, but that was definitely the pregame tradition, and then obviously had kind of my normal like way I hit the pipe before the game, that type of thing. And overall, I don't think I was a crazy superstitious player. For me, it was just go out and play. I didn't love taking warm-up shots. That was something. I would take like a few, I'd get warm, but after that, I would go off to the side and just wait for the game just because I don't know. I wanted live action. So that was one of my weird things. But yeah, so that's kind of the story of how I was a goalie and my weirdly brief career. I still step in sometimes to play men's league, but at the same time, you don't want to take a ball to the shin as much when it doesn't mean as much. So a little less nowadays, but that's how I found it. And a big goalie fan, love the position, love watching it during spring and everything, and getting to see some great goalies.
It's very interesting that you said you didn't like taking warm-ups, because I'm the same way in soccer. Like, I don't want warm-ups. I never take warm-ups. It's weird. Like, I'll warm up on the side, but it's just I'm not taking the shots. I don't know
Yeah,
why. It's just a weird thing.
I agree. No, I don't know why. It's just like I'd rather wait for that live action and then I'll go. And then it's go time. Like I don't need to take your fake shots. I'd want game shots.
So Bandits versus Swarm Saturday night. You got the call. Last year, these two teams faced twice in Bandit Land. The first one, we've already mentioned him multiple times how he can steal a game. Dobson completely stole that game. I was up in the press box. I'm just going, this guy is just unbeatable. It was ridiculous. They won 9-8, and then the second matchup happened in the first round of the playoffs. The electric game winner by Josh Byrne, but the game was fantastic, and everybody always mentions it. They were one goal away from Georgia upsetting Buffalo, and you wouldn't be talking about three-peat here. But what type of game are you expecting to call versus these two teams on Saturday night?
I think it's probably just going based on what we've seen from Georgia as of late. I think we probably will see high scoring. As much as they wouldn't love to see that, I do think with what Buffalo brings in, I mean, we all know what they bring in, and it's a lot of firepower and it's a lot to stop. So I think they're going to get theirs, but I think this Georgia offense can get theirs as well. So I think we'll have a closer game, but higher scoring is probably more what I'm thinking about. A lot of goal calls should be coming, but I think it's gonna go that way, and then it's really, I think Brett Dobson is really a guy to look at in this game. He could be the change. I mean, like you said, we've already seen it in a Buffalo game, so that could be it. But probably high scoring, and if the offense for Georgia cannot get going, then you're probably looking at a big Buffalo win.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting. We're probably going to talk about it on our show on Friday, but because Buffalo has everything locked up, how much do they play Mad Vince? Is anybody that's got a little bit of nicks and injuries? Or do they
100%.
want to play a little bit of spoiler here and not want to face Georgia in a potential round one matchup? So there's a lot to determine moving forward.
There definitely is, and that's something to add to it completely. Like I'm going into it thinking, hey, we always assume both teams just going to go at it. They're going to give it their all. You know that. But there is the thought to play. Georgia is desperate right now. They need a win. Like you said at the beginning of the show, it's pretty much must win. So desperation versus the top team in the league that knows what their future holds. So that could be definitely a underlying storyline to this game.
So, what area of Georgia's game do you think they have a solid edge over the Bandits that will help them get that win over Buffalo on Saturday night?
Oh, that's really tough because Buffalo does like everything great. So that's really hard to say. But I think maybe. Oh, this is tough. I think on the defensive end, Georgia can be very good. I know I love Georgia's offense and all the talent they have, but you'd be crazy to take any other offense but Buffalo. So defensively, I think Buffalo probably wins the goalie matchup, but I really do like the pieces on the back end for Georgia where if they're all playing together, also staying out of the box, then I think that could give them they could have an upper hand there on the back end, but it is really tough to say where they are above Buffalo just because of everything that Buffalo does so well and has done all season. But I think there are a lot of ways where they're neck and neck and right there with each other because of just, if you're talking star power, Buffalo's got a lot of star power. Obviously, we know who Georgia's got on the other end with the Thompson brothers. So it's going to be a very interesting game. It's going to have to be a top to bottom game for Georgia, though. I think if they want to get the win, it's not going to be any certain part of the ball. But if you're looking at any unit, I think the defense, if they can play together, I think is a really solid group of guys that could steal a win. But with the inconsistency of Georgia, how are the other parts of the ball going to play as well? How are they going to perform? We got question marks, but they're all going to be answered this weekend, so it'll be exciting.
So just two more for you here. For the Swarm to get the win on Saturday night, what does this have to happen, and what is this?
I think if the Swarm are to win this week against Buffalo, I think Brett Dobson has to have a game. Just like the last time Buffalo lost to Georgia, Brett Dobson was a huge reason, and I think I think that's going to be a huge part of stopping this Buffalo defense, or at least holding them to the best of your ability. Obviously, I don't know about stopping them is going to happen, but hold them down, hold them under 12, like I've said many times, and see what happens on the offensive end. But he's going to have to be at the very least solid, if not very, very good.
So the final question, it's always something unrelated to the guest, to the sport. A magic genie appears in front of you, and it grants you one special ability that allows you to cancel out any activity that you just despise doing. What is that genie getting rid of for you, and why?
So this is just like any general activity.
Any general activity you want.
So I think I'm going, and this is no hate to anyone who loves cooking or it's a de-stressor or something. That's awesome. I wish that was me. It is not. I'm not a big cook. I don't really like doing it. So I would take 100% cooking. If I could take that out and it's done for me or something like that, 100%. That's easy.
That's a good one. That's when I got married and found my girlfriend then, fiance, wife, whatever transition you want to call it. I started eating a lot healthier. It used to be like frozen pizzas nonstop. So yeah, I can feel with the cooking. For me, I wanted a little different route. I don't mind flying because my wife hates me about this. As soon as I get on the plane, like I'm asleep. Like it doesn't even
Oh
start
my.
taxiing. I'm out completely. But we took a flight a couple years ago to Italy, and it was a long flight, and I did sleep through it. But if I can get rid of flying completely and just end up there, I'll take that one.
That's a good one. First off, you have a superpower if you're able to just
Yeah,
get on
I
a
don't get
plane
it
and sleep. That's amazing.
instantly.
I would love that. Uh, but yeah, I mean, if I could just teleport or just like blanket on somewhere else, I'll take that all day.
Right. Yeah, but cooking would probably be a good one as well.
I still like that one every single day. Yeah, I'll take that. If I could not have to cook and food's still there, I'd be happy.
It's already done for you. So save some time. But
Exactly.
Nick, thank you for joining us on the Buffalo Sports Collective. Do you want to let everyone know where they can find you and pretty much anything else you want to plug for the listeners?
Yeah, I mean, you can find me at Nicholas.Kloss on Instagram, Nicholas_Kloss on Twitter. And yeah, I do a lot of different sports and for ESPN Plus and ACC Network Extra. So you may catch me all over. And if you love field lacrosse, college lacrosse, I do a lot of women's and men's for all around the ACC and stuff. So if you see me there, excited to have you watching some college lacrosse. And yeah, so catch me on those. And thank you so much for having me. Had a blast.
Yeah, thanks again for joining us on the BSC. Hopefully you talked it down the road and maybe in a couple weeks when if there's a playoff matchup. But continued success with the broadcasting.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
So we will be back Friday with our normal episode to preview Bandits versus Swarm, and we will talk to you all then.